Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to this class. I'm sorry about all the craziness last minute. If I could explain to you what I've been through in the last 2 weeks upon my travels, I don't even know that I could. But I'm here. I'm ready to teach you guys. Today, we're going to talk about stimulus and response generalization, one of my favorite topics to teach, which a lot of people get very stressed about it. So hopefully, if you're here and you have like a high level of stress regarding stimulus and response generalization, I'm hoping to break it down for you. So without further ado, let's go. What are you going to need for our classes? You are going to need paper always, pens, highlighters, anything to take notes because we always take the notes with you. So keep that in mind. Also, this will be up online after as a free video. You should also check out our other free videos on YouTube if there's anything that could help you. Also, our next collective is starting on July 7th, where we go way further into detail on every single topic. But these classes are a little bit of a taste. We're a little more organized usually, I promise. This is just a crazy time. And I'm in another country, time zone. There's a war going on, just a lot of pieces. Okay, so we always put a friendly reminder, disseminate our shit, but don't steal it. We work really hard. So let's first talk about the concept of what generality is. Okay, so we know when we talk about our 7 dimensions of ABA, one of the things we talk about is generality. So let's get this written down. Let me get into flow. Generality. So what is it? We talk about something having generality if something could be generalized to something else. So if you know how to write your name on a piece of paper, I teach you that. And now you could generalize to write your name on an iPad, to writing your name on a whiteboard. That is generality. So we say behavior change has generality if behavior change has generality if, okay? The behavior lasts over a period of time, meaning it's able to generalize over time, right? So hopefully the content I teach you today generalizes over time, right? You're going to understand stimulus and response generalization today, and then hopefully you could apply it on your testing day or tomorrow at the park, right? The behavior change lasts over time. We know it's generalized if it appears in new environments. So let's say I am teaching you how to pick up a guy, okay? I teach it to you in Lucky's bar. I want to know, can you now pick up a guy at a coffee shop? This is a harder skill to teach, I get it. I don't know how to do it either, but if I could, right? I could teach you these things and it's generalizing to new environments. Can you pick up someone at the gym? Can you, right? This means that we have generality and we talk about appears in new environments outside of treatment. TX is treatment. So like wherever I'm teaching the skill, or maybe I'm teaching like a student to demand or request an item, maybe I did it in the clinic being like, hey, oh, you want the computer mouse? You could say mouse, right? They say mouse, they get it. Now, can they generalize and ask for candy when they see candy? Can they ask for a break if they need a break, right? So we talk about something has generality if it lasts over time, if it appears in new environments, and lastly, if it spreads to other behaviors not treated directly. So if it spreads to other behaviors not treated directly in the intervention. So let's say I've told you like, I'm like, okay, we're going to work on a skill. Let's say right now, maybe it could even be like getting rid of something. So let's say that someone has been crying for attention, right? Tantruming, right? For attention. And I've taught them, hey, by the way, you could just like hand me this card and be like, hey, I need something. I need attention. I need an item, right? Maybe whatever it is. Or they're tantruming because they need a break, right? They were doing that. So now they're handing this card out. Now maybe like also instead of tantruming, they stop kicking, right? It's generalizing there because it's also like they're like, oh, I could do this for a break. Or you know, when it spreads to behaviors not treated directly, that also is what we're going to talk about a lot today with response and stimulus generalization, right? I may teach you how to open a door by pushing it, but now you could open a door without me teaching you directly, using your elbow, pushing it with your butt, whatever it is. Okay? So now, why is generalization super important for learning? We're going to talk about that right now. Because we don't have to teach every variation that someone will come in contact with anything. So imagine this, okay? Before I write this down, I teach you one day, like, right? I'm teaching Kobe. That's my son, by the way, if you don't know. This is green, okay? This is the first time he's ever come into contact with learning what the color green is, and I teach him this is green. If he doesn't have generalization, it's going to be a problem when I hold this book up one day and say, what color is it, right? Or when I hold up something like, do we have any more greens? I love that I'm in Israel here in an office and I see she has a snap of pens. This green, right? So the idea if someone could generalize, I could teach you green and you understand it enough to see a new shade of green or a slightly different variation of green and understand like, oh, that's green, right? That's why it's so important for learning. So the idea of generalization is that we don't have to teach every variation one will ever come into contact with. For example, let's say I teach you how to read, okay? And I taught you that the P sound makes a P, okay? I taught you P, and the first word maybe I did was, let's say it was pot, okay? I don't know every P word you're ever going to come into contact with, but because you could generalize when you see the word plant, right? You know how to read it because you know the P sound. Pond, puck, party. Let's say there's a word that you've never heard of, like paraspecific or something. You'd know how to read it because you can generalize, oh, I know what the P sound does, and I could now apply it to other words, okay? Now, also, how we teach generalization is we teach multiple examples, right? So I'm going to teach you probably like, oh, by the way, plant. I might teach you pond. I may teach you puck. And now when you see something totally new, you're able to read it. Okay, so we have strategies that we use for teaching generalization. All right, now we have an example like that, or we could have like, let's say for the first time in your life, you see a dog, okay? And it happens to be a golden retriever. How is it that you could now see a golden retriever and the next time you see a French bulldog, you could say dog, right? That shows that you're able to generalize. There's dog breeds that I've never seen before, but I could still tell you that it's a dog, right? That could be a pug, a German Shepherd. I don't know what kind of dog just walked in the room a minute ago. It was like a look like Pomeranian-esque, but like black. I don't know, but I can still tell you it's a dog, right? That's because of generalization. And we rely on this heavily. And by the way, these are naturally happening to like the majority of us in our everyday lives. Like we could figure out like, I mean, I was taught to open, like, I was taught to greet someone like this, but like, even though this person looks different, I'm sure I could still greet them the same way, right? This is all part of learning. All right, are we good, guys? Do you have these notes? Because now we're about to actually get into teaching stimulus and response generalization. Are you guys good? Beautiful. And
the chat saying yes.
good. Amazing. Yes. Okay. So we're good. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure you guys are taking it in because I'm still like coming down from running in here so fast. Also, I don't know where the AC is in here, but whoa. Okay. So let's go ahead. Now we're going to break our paper in half. Okay. Hot dog style for any of my educators in here. And we're going to write on one side, we're going to write stimulus generalization. And on the other side, we're going to write response generalization. Okay, stimulus generalization and then response generalization. All right. Now, you guys see these words as response and stimulus generalization. After coming to this class, you will never see them. Whenever you read them, you will never read them just as stimulus and response generalization. Okay? You are going to read it. Insert the word multiple stimulus generalization and multiple response generalization. Okay? Because that is telling you exactly what is happening. So we're going to write out these long definitions and then we're going to draw it out and you're going to get it. Okay. So let's just write it out first. And then after that, you're going to understand it. So stimulus generalization, the extent to which stimuli other than the SD or the discriminative stimulus acquire stimulus control. By the way, this is the Cooper definition, and that is why we give you these and then we break it down. Okay, I know Cooper is a lot more difficult to take in. So the extent to which stimuli other than the SD acquire stimulus control over the behavior stimuli sharing hashtag, we use hashtags when we want to remember things. Similar physical features with the SD. Okay. So with the original stimulus that was taught are most likely to acquire the evocative effect. Get it? No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't expect you to get it after that. Okay, because I'm about to break it down. I do that for the boring part to show you what I can offer you right now. Okay? And we call this having loose stimulus control. What the hell did I just write over here? Let's draw it out and make it make sense. Okay, so I said stimulus generalization is multiple stimuli, right? Also, where the F is the AC in here? This is very aggressive. This is a major CMOT situation. Let me just ask. My. Can you put Mazgan on, please? But don't let Kobe see where I am. Okay. So we're going to draw out a three-term contingency, okay? We know that we have the ABC, also known as the SRS, the stimulus response stimulus. We're really going to be focusing on the first two parts of it, the stimulus and the response, okay? So this is what happens with stimulus generalization when we're drawing it out, okay? So what happens is this. When you're young, okay, and this is the story of my life, okay? I, as a kid, had very bad ADHD, okay? I had never taken a pill before. So there's a stimulus, right? We'll call it stimulus one. And they're like, Liat, we really need you to take this pill, right? Like I was really struggling in school. And this is how you take a pill, okay? So the first pill I had, this is a blue Adderall for anyone, any of my Adderall friends in here. Okay? So you're going to take this pill, this stimulus, and what you're going to do is draw a little profile of face with a mouth that looks like a witch. Okay. And the response is you're going to swallow it. So I was taught when you get this blue pill, right? The response you're going to do is swallow it. And then you're going to have, let's say, the consequence. We have the next stimulus over here, maybe like focus, could have potentially been relief, whatever it was that I'm getting from that pill, but I was taught to take that blue pill. Okay. A little while later, I I was only taught to take the Adderall pill, but now I'm having an allergic reaction, right? And I'm handed, what am I handed? Who knows their pills around here? What are we going to take? It's pink. And it is, you can say it out loud. Don't be shy. Exactly, Sophia. It's Benadryl. Okay. Let's call it stimulus two. No one has to teach me specifically, like when you take Benadryl, you swallow it like this. But because of generalization, I know exactly what to do, right? Because of similar physical features, I can respond. Now we have that, okay? So now we're at stimulus two. And why is it called multiple stimulus generalization? Because there are multiple stimuli and one response, okay? So now life goes on. I'm in high school. I have a breakup. I get really depressed. That was the start of being like, maybe she needs some medication for her depression. I'd already struggled with it before, right? Here comes the, what was it? Lexapro. Okay. Again, let's call this stimulus three. You don't tell me how to take Lexapro specifically. I could do it because I know how to take Adderall. I could take Benadryl. I can take Lexapro. I could take Zoloft. I mean, I could keep naming. I could take an Advil, right? And all of them, they might have different, you know, one might give me relief of pain. One might get rid of a stomach ache. Maybe one day I take a pill of Molly, ecstasy. I don't know. And whatever it is, the idea is that I know how to take a pill. Okay? One response, swallowing, if I look at it, and multiple stimuli. If you see multiple stimuli and there's one response, that means it's, stimulus generalization because multiple stimulus. Okay? Cool. Now, what happens when that's a button, by the way, okay? It's going to be our next stimulus. It looks an awful lot like a pill, right? But I'm either taught or I have experience, right? Something happens and it's like, that looks really similarly at. but you're not going to swallow that one. And that is what we call stimulus discrimination. So stimulus generalization is when we're talking about loose stimulus control. It's like, hey, you're a pill, like loose, like you could sit with us and you could sit with us. We'll consider you a pill, you a pill. But then we have tighter stimulus control when we're like, you're awfully similar, but no, you're not a pill. Okay. So to really understand anything fully, you need to know what something is, like generalization, what fits in it, but also what something is not, right? To discriminate. Like you're really close, but you're not that. Okay. That's the difference of like figuring out like, oh, I could wipe my butt with toilet paper, um, a paper bag, computer paper, a tissue. But stimulus discrimination is going to be like, but don't do it with the poison ivy leaf. You could do it with the oak tree leaf, but not the poison ivy leaf, right? So that's why you need to have both stimulus generalization and discrimination to fully understand anything. But today we're just talking about the generalization piece, okay? So stimulus discrimination has a tight degree of stimulus control. Thank you. Okay. So now we've talked about stimulus generalization. Now let's talk about response generalization. So we were saying if there's multiple stimuli and one response, it's stimulus generalization, okay? Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to talk about response generalization, okay? And we're still using the same three-term contingency: stimulus, response, stimulus. Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to talk about, let's say we have, do we want to do wine or weed? What are you guys feeling today? What do you, wine or weed? Melanie says wine. Okay.
Wine.
All right. I'm also feeling wine. I'm actually feeling anything. I'm so overwhelmed today. Okay. So we'll talk about wine. So we're going to talk about what is response generalization. Well, according to the Cooper book, it is the extent to which the learner emits hashtag untrained responses that are, this is a really important part, okay? Hashtag functionally equivalent to the trained target behavior. Okay, so let's go back. And by the way, I like to like make things more salient. So like this one, I'd say similar physical features, right? Now response generalization, I'd say functionally equivalent is like the key here. So now we're going to talk about, let's say we have a wine bottle, okay? A bottle of wine. That's our stimulus. Wine. Okay, so we have a bottle of wine. Now I was taught to open it. Let's say my first response, the first time I was taught to use like a classic, like the, you know, here the arms go up of the wine opener, pull it down, and it opens the bottle of wine, right? So let's say I open with wine opener. What's the consequence here? Right? I can drink the wine. I can enjoy it. Right? Now, Now, anyone ever been stuck without a wine opener? I'm sure that you guys have done some unique things, right? So obviously, you gotta ask ChatGPT or figure it out, something similar. Or, I mean, the classic is stick a knife in it, right? Try poke it in. I've definitely done that. It doesn't always work. But let's see. You've knifed to push it in. Okay. The response, if I actually like look at what the form and like what it physically looks like, it looks completely different, right? Using the wine opener, doing this, or if I were looking at someone like sticking a knife, it looks completely different, but it's serving the same function. I could drink the wine, right? And feel that chill. No matter how I'm doing it, it's functionally equivalent. Now I could do something that looks totally different, right? There's the shoe hack, right? Hit it with a shoe. Okay. All of these, I only trained you, let's say, on opening with a wine opener. But all of like the response 2, response 3, response 4, response 500, you were able to generalize. That's generalization. And the same goes here for stimulus generalization. I taught you how to take Adderall, but you were able to generalize and take Benadryl. What did I say that was? Is that, I think I said it was no, not lorazepam. I'm going through all my pills. That was Lexapro in this example. However, you could take a Klonopin, you could take Midol, whatever it is, because of generalization, right? That's what's so amazing is that when we're teaching, and that's the idea of anything we're teaching, by the way, to our like why it matters in ABA, is that like if I teach you to ask for one thing, I'm hoping that you can now ask for a lot of things that you need, right? If I'm teaching you to use one toilet, like in fact, we actually had an issue with Kobe when I was potty training him. He only wanted to use his tiny blue potty. Okay. That's a generalization issue. So I need to make sure that he could pee on his little blue potty. He could do it when he has the Paw Patrol seat. He could do it in a public restroom seat. He could do it on an airplane bathroom seat, which is like my nightmare, which I have faced. I was like petrified to ever have to use an airplane bathroom. I could like literally, I would rather like hold it in for like 3 days than use an airplane toilet. But I did it. I faced it with Kobe, right? And he's like touching the side of the seat, and I'm like, ugh, right? But that's generalization. Okay. Now, the important thing here is the functionally equivalent part. That the responses, so if there's multiple responses that look different, like you physically look at it and it looks completely different, that is going to be response generalization. Now, listen up. What do a lot of people confuse? They're going to be like, Liat, but there's multiple stimuli here, right? There's a wine opener, that's a stimulus. There's a shoe. There's a knife. There's a table around, right? There's always going to be stimuli around, but you need to look at like what was the purpose of those stimuli around. Those stimuli are used to make other responses, right? So be careful the way that you're putting it. So I said the bottle of wine. So that's why it's so important to look at like, oh, those stimuli are all for functionally equivalent responses. That's why we have the classic example of when you're going fishing, right? You want to go fishing. You could either catch it with like putting out a actual like rod. You could use a net. You could use a spear. You could use your bare hand, right? Those are ultimately, there's other stimuli there, but what's the purpose of those? Those are all functionally equivalent to get you the fish to eat. Does that make sense? So you must ask yourself, yes, there's always going to be stimuli around thing, but is there multiple stimuli that are having only one response? Or are these stimuli around to help you have functionally equivalent responses? Cool? Are we understanding this? Yes, yes. Okay. It's hard when I don't see any faces. I'm teaching, but Jessica's listening, so which is cool. Even though Jessica was already a student and already passed the exam. So
I did. But everyone's getting it.
you're getting it. Okay, beautiful. All right. Now, here we go. We're going to now see if you learned anything along the way. And we're going to practice with some practice questions. And what you're going to do is in the chat, You are going to send your answer to either me, Liat, or Jessica, so that we'll go over the answer um, together. That's a great question. How do we differentiate between functional stimulus class and response generalization? Um, well, stimulus class are going to be stimuli. You have to look at where it lives in the three-term contingency, right? So when we talk about the SRS or the ABC, if it's multiple things that are in the S part, either in the antecedent or in the consequence, the stimulus part, those are going to be a stimulus class, right? If it's parts that live in the response part, that's why you always need to draw out the three-term contingency. That's going to be response generalization. All right, let's see what we have learned. While walking with her daughter, Stacy encourages her to label different types of flowers. Stacy loves her garden and houseplants as she tends to regularly and has recently found joy in spreading some flower knowledge with her daughter. While walking her daughter makes several errors and labels 95% of the flowers as roses. Even though the flowers look vastly different, which of the following concepts does Stacy's daughter display? Okay, this is a hard question. A, conditional discrimination, B, response generalization, C, stimulus discrimination, or D, stimulus generalization. All right, I see some answers coming in. It's hard because it's not a perfect one. All right, the answer here is stimulus generalization, okay? Yes, she makes an error, and it's due to stimulus generalization where there's overgeneralization, okay? So when the same response is emitted for two stimuli that share the same physical characteristics, stimulus generalization has occurred. Even though Stacy's daughter has overgeneralized stimuli, the stimuli still share similar properties and fit the definition of stimulus generalization. Now, what we just spoke about is why it's so important to have both stimulus generalization and discrimination to be like, okay, wow, yeah, these are all flowers, right? They're very similar. They all have petals, they all have pollen, they all have leaves. But discrimination is telling you, like, oh, but this one's not a rose. This is a daisy, right? So that's how we fully learn things. Okay, that was a tricky one. All right. Next question. A BCBA teaches Callie, a fourth grade student with selective mutism, to respond to peers during a structured lunchtime social group by making simple comments about shared activities, such as that puzzle was hard or I like that game. After several weeks, staff noticed that Callie begins making similar comments during morning recess, art class, and during group time in her homeroom. However, she does not yet initiate comments in one-on-one conversations or with unfamiliar adults. Which of the following best describes the generalization observed in this scenario? A, response generalization, because Callie is using similar types of comments in different group activities. B, stimulus generalization, because Callie is demonstrating the trained response in untrained settings and situations. C, overgeneralization, because Callie is now using learned responses in contexts that were not specifically targeted. Or D, maintenance, because Callie is demonstrating the behavior across time and conditions. Okay. Amazing. All right, let's look at it. The answer is stimulus generalization. Okay, tricky, tricky. Danielle always likes to put very hard questions. And this is stimulus generalization. Why? Because Callie is demonstrating the trained response in untrained settings and situations. Okay, the scenario is a strong example of stimulus generalization, where a learned response, making social comments during peer interactions, is occurring across different but similar settings and conditions, right? Different stimuli, but you're still able to make the response, okay? Where a learned response, making social comments during peer interactions, is occurring across different but similar settings and conditions, such as recess, art, and classroom group time. These environments were not directly trained, but they share enough features, peer group, shared activities, that Callie's behavior is transferring. While her comments are consistent with what was taught, the key generalization is across stimuli. Okay? That is the setting, activity, or social context, not a variation in the behavior itself. Okay? Why the other answers are incorrect? Well, A, response generalization is not correct because Callie is using similar types of comments in different group activities. She is using the same type of response in different settings, which defines stimulus generalization, not a variation in other responses. It's not overgeneralization because Callie is now using learned responses in contexts that were not specifically targeted, right? Overgeneralization involves inappropriate or inaccurate application, right? That's when you think like every old person with wrinkles is your grandma. Okay? And it's not maintenance because Callie is demonstrating the behavior across time and conditions. Maintenance refers to behavior persisting over time, typically in the same context. This question is focused on the transfer across settings. So we do talk about, different settings across different behaviors and across different subjects or individuals. All right, everyone, you have done it. You have come today. It's in the morning for you guys. For me, it's the night. And we went over stimulus and response generalization. It was quick. We go into a lot more detail in class, but some things I want to tell you guys about before we head out are, and Jessica, I sent you the email. Um, we have other free classes coming up. Our other free classes coming up, which you could sign up on the website, are we have the 3-term versus the 4-term contingency class. That is going to be on Wednesday, July 2nd. All right, at 12 p.m. CST. All right. We also have, what other class? We have stimulus versus response class. That is on Sunday, July 7th. You could join that also. Jessica will put the chats. It's in an email, Jessica. If you find them, you see them. That will be on that will be on I just said on July 6th at 12 Central Standard. That's a Sunday. Reminder for everyone that the live collective starts on July 7th. Okay, July 7th. And if you want to join, because you are in this class, you could use coupon code LEARN and it will give you $50 off any of the live collectives.
And in the
Other
chat for you guys as well.
Perfect. Other things coming up. What else is happening? Definitely check out all of our free stuff on YouTube. There's good content for you that you could go over different concepts. We're also really trying to add to it. In fact, we are having a summer series mini question dissections that will slowly be uploaded to YouTube starting on July 10th. 5 questions at a time that you could go over and we'll break it down for you. What else do I have? Mock exams, any of that you could get on our website. And one thing I really want to tell you guys, if you don't know whether you want to join the collective or not, on the first night of class on July, that is on July, I'm so lost with dates. That is July 6th, right?
July 6th is the day before July 7th is the first day of class.
July 7th. I have to tell you, I'm on such a time zone thing. Everything is very crazy. You could come to the first night of class, try before you buy. You could sign up on the website to come. No pressure to have to sign up for it. Just come. You'll learn something where you get into content even on night 1. So I'd love to see you guys there. Anything else I'm forgetting, Jessica?
This is a shameless plug. If you guys love podcasts, please go to the Behavior Bitches podcast. It's a great way to study without feeling like you're studying, okay? This is something that was super instrumental in my journey. It helped me. I had a pretty long commute back and forth to work, and I absolutely 150,000% loved it. So, it is on Apple. It's on Google, wherever you guys can download on your device. Um, one of my favorite ones is the four functions of behavior. It's the four functions of a serial killer. So, go look at that one. It's amazing.
The podcast is so that you're listening on interesting topics and you'll hear behavior principles like throughout, so you don't realize that you're really studying. All right, that's the goal there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you everyone for coming.